This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to How Experts Become Experts. I'm excited to dive into Chapter 3, where we're exploring domain expertise and why being amazing at chess doesn't automatically make you a master negotiator. We'll unpack the difference between skills that transfer across different fields versus those that are laser-focused on one specific area. Let's get into it. An expert is someone who has made all the mistakes that can be made in a very narrow field. A physicist in a hospital meeting. A jazz pianist writing code at midnight. A veteran CEO joining a nonprofit board. They're brilliant, yet suddenly clumsy. Why does expertise vanish when the domain shifts? 12,000 hours of training turn a medical student into a safe physician. Yet that same person may feel lost running a small clinic's budget spreadsheet. A legendary CTO stumbles when asked to pitch to non-technical investors. A top product manager moves into climate policy and discovers their instincts misfire. The pattern isn't lack of talent, it's that their finely tuned skills were calibrated for different rules, tools, and feedback loops. In technology, this shows up everywhere. A brilliant back-end engineer struggles with UX decisions. An elite researcher fails at people management. A successful startup founder misjudges how to ship inside a large enterprise. The underlying issue is not intelligence, but domain boundaries. To grow, you don't need to be more expert in general. You need to learn how to move sideways, deliberately, into neighboring domains without starting from zero. So the real question becomes, how do you extend what you already know without diluting it? In tech, the temptation is to declare yourself T-shaped after skimming a few blog posts on product, design, or ML. But shallow breadth rarely changes how you think or decide. The shift happens when you treat a nearby field less like a hobby and more like a second language. You listen to its arguments, adopt its tools, and try small, real problems in its accent. The goal isn't reinvention, it's building a second, adjacent stack of capabilities that can actually talk to your original one. In technology, adjacent domains are often hiding in plain sight, inside the work you already do. The trick is noticing where your decisions consistently feel fuzzy or where you rely on vague intuition. Those blurry zones usually mark the edge of your current domain and the entrance to the next one. A back-end engineer bumps into product thinking when arguing about scope. A designer repeatedly collides with data science when stakeholders demand evidence. A EM spends half their week in prioritization debates that are really about finance, not Jira tickets. You're already touching neighboring domains, you're just doing it as a tourist. What separates tourists from residents is the kind of questions they ask. Tourists look for tips. What's a good framework for X? Residents look for constraints. What trade-offs do you face every day? In tech, most cross-domain conversations stop at frameworks, road mapping templates, design systems, experiment playbooks. Frameworks feel powerful, but without the underlying constraints, they're just well-formatted opinions. This is where deliberate practice enters. The research on domain-specific skill shows that experts don't just know more, they see different things. A senior SRE scanning a dashboard isn't reading numbers faster, they're spotting patterns that don't even register to a novice. To move into an adjacent field, you need repeated exposure to the kinds of patterns practitioners actually care about, and feedback on how you interpret them. So instead of trying to balance your skills in the abstract, zoom in on one high-stakes recurring interface between your domain and the next one. Maybe it's handoffs between design and engineering, or debates over whether to refactor or ship, or tension between growth and security. That interface is your training ground. From there, you can start building tiny, domain-specific chunks, a handful of canonical examples, a few core metrics that really matter, 3 or 4 archetypal failure modes. Think of them less as trivia to remember and more as landmarks on a map you're learning to navigate. Over time, enough landmarks turn a foreign landscape into somewhere you can actually operate, not just visit with a slide deck. A staff engineer who keeps getting dragged into roadmap fights might quietly start attending product review meetings, not to speak, but to note what actually changes the decision. Over a month, patterns emerge. Certain metrics get everyone's attention, certain risks end the discussion. Those are proto-chunks. Next, they take one real feature and, with a PM, rewrite its pitch entirely in that language. Problem, segments, constraints, bets. The first attempts feel wooden, but each correction wires a little more of the new domain into place. A designer curious about data can do something similar by shadowing one experiment from idea to post-mortem. Not how do I A/B test, but which questions survive contact with messy logs, missing events, and angry stakeholders. When a proposed variant is rejected because the lift isn't worth the instrumentation cost, that's another chunk. Effort is a variable, not background noise. Across roles, the most useful chunks usually come from these frictions, where your current instincts routinely meet someone else's obvious. A quiet shift is coming. Teams will care less about job titles and more about where your map overlaps mine. When crises hit, security breach, churn spike, runaway costs, the people who can read 2 or 3 maps at once become the new first responders. Like a musician who can sit in with any band, they translate fast, turning logs into money language for finance or user pain into system risks for infra without anyone needing an interpreter. You don't need a grand plan, just a next edge to lean on. Look for the meetings where you speak less and leave curious, like hearing a half-finished melody. That curiosity is a compass, not a distraction. Your challenge this week: pick one such edge and commit to staying 10 minutes longer in it, asking one more precise, slightly risky question. This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. This series continues with more chapters on OwlUp.co. Visit OwlUp.co to access the complete course and continue your learning journey. See you there!